And here we go.
Here we go.
Hooligan Soccer Podcast.
Once again, Hooligans in the house with the Qooligan and Gary Stryker.
Indeed. Game week, I think it's 11 now, or game week 10, 11. We're sort of getting through them as well. It's coming together. There's
game week 11 coming up, starting tomorrow.
There has been a huge amount going on this last week since we last connected and spoke. I think we've got Champions League to cover, we've got Premier League, we've got MLS, and then, of course, we have the dreaded international break coming up as well. So there's a little bit of a respite.
Where we will see,
I can
finally, hopefully, something decent coming out of the Dutch side.
I wonder. So, are you just going to alternate between the Crystal Palace and the Dutch shirt, or is there's going to have to be something?
I don't owe you an explanation of my shirt. The Qooligan does what he wants, and you never know.
Evidently. Will we see your Man United shirts on there? I doubt it.
Never.
I doubt it.
Never.
So, let's talk Champions League. What a week in the Champions League. This was
crazy.
I think, first of all, just off the top, a fan or no fan of the new format?
Not hating it.
Not hating it.
Not hating it.
Yes.
With caveats. No, I got it. No, I think I don't want to give kudos to these corporate monsters that constantly tweak with formats, but I think this is better. You know, there was the problem with the old format was you'd get the draw and you'd sometimes go into the games knowing. You're like, you'd see the draw and then all the magic would be like,
yeah, you knew that Real Madrid were going to smash Rubin Kazan 7-0 and they just needed to win 3 games and they were qualified, right?
Right. There's juice here. We got some serious drama going in. We're halfway through. And there's some serious drama.
There is some.
And most of it involves Real Madrid for good reason. They have, we can get into that later, but.
So we have.
In cribbage, look it up, kids. Cribbage, there's something called a skunk. And whenever I grew up playing cribbage with my grandfather who was in the Navy. And so every time we'd get close and he would start doing this. Wow, it's getting real smelly in here. That's what's happening in Real Madrid right now.
There is. Well, let's start with Real Madrid then as well.
Let's just go right into it.
So Real Madrid, so just looking at the scores, they got thumped by Sporting Lisbon. I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's Manchester City. I'm sorry. Real Madrid got thumped at home by AC Milan, which is basically a combination of US men's national team and Chelsea X rejects.
Yeah.
Smashed Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Pulisic, obviously superstar, putting in great crosses.
Got the first assist. Well done.
Mr. I want a Ballon d'Or, but I'm going to take my Ballon d'Or home if I don't win it. Vinicius got a penalty. Didn't ingratiate himself in again with a funky dive, to be honest. I don't know if you saw the highlights of that one, which was a little bit strange. But Real Madrid, and then they seem to have this imbalance problem, which is when you load too many stars up front, and then you put someone like Mbappe and Vinicius, same style of players, and try and fit them in. What do you think's going on there?
Right. I mean, it's almost like PSG 2.0. I mean, maybe with a younger generation of talent, but yeah. You contrast Real to someone like a Sporting who have a clear generational talent in Yorkes, right? I mean, that kid's insane. And clearly he's the talisman player, he's the focus player. There are other players that do things too, but this is the kid who owns it. And Real, who is it? You had 3 players in the top 5 Ballon d'Or finishers. All of them shot the bed in that game. Bellingham couldn't find the broadside of a barn. Right? I mean, let alone the goal, the face of the goal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, his stuff was flying all over the place. Yeah. No, listen, I think they're cursed. I think the football deities are poo-pooing on Real Madrid for all the shenanigans that they pulled at the Ballon d'Or. They got petulant, they got petty, And guess what?
The footballing gods
Gods
are
can be
punishing
fickle too. And now it's payback time.
And now it's payback time. We'll see. We'll have to see what happens. It seems like there is a real imbalance. I think what by the way, I was loving the CBS reporting, and then Thierry Henry, who obviously being a Frenchman and obviously, being a Kylian Mbappe superstar, he did not hold back on his analogy of Mbappe, which is he's not running. He is not making through runs. And he made that point of how Bellingham is the one who's making all the runs and Mbappe is just sort of sitting around. And I wouldn't say he's getting found out because I think Mbappe is a superstar. He is incredible. But they do have an imbalance problem where you've got Vinicius and Mbappe, the same player who play on that left side. They've had to obviously put Mbappe through the middle. And he says, I don't want to go there. Apparently it's coming out that he's saying he wants to play on the left side. The problem is that's Vinicius' his spot. He's owned it. He's sort of, got into the sort of, the top three sort of by the Ballon d'Or standards, even if he didn't win it in that position. So why would you change a winning formula for your superstar? And then what's also interesting from Real Madrid's perspective, did you see the bench that they had on there? They had Rodrigo, who's obviously sort of been kicked to the curb as well because to make way for Mbappe. And then they've got that young Brazilian superstar, Endrick, as well, who's just sitting on the side. And then there was a third one, I can't remember who his name. So it feels like, again, they've sort of gone too Galactico almost as well now.
I mean, okay. Yeah. They've got a problem with talent. Gee, what a shame.
Too much of a spot.
I don't, and no, but they have, and it's clearly not a lack of talent. I don't think it's a lack of coaching. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti's fantastic. He can make the best out of these scenarios, but I think even he's having problems.
Yeah.
Right. Just trying to figure out what's going on. I think you'd really have to look at training film. What's it like on the training ground? Where is the dynamic? What's the dynamic that's happening there? I did see a tweet about something that there's been dust-ups in training that people have caught on film and and sheeted out on stuff. So
it's almost like
listen. There's trouble. There's trouble at Bernabeu. Eh?
There is the trouble at the Bernabeu. I think it's too early to say it's akin to Man United's great collapse as well. But I think it's not there. It's maybe a little bit of a storm in the teacup. But also Spanish league, they're 9 points second, 9 points behind Barcelona already after I think 10 games or so. So
and they're batting 500. They're batting 500 in the league. I mean, they're in the playoff zone.
There's still a few more. So what are they? I'm just looking in.
They're at 18th right now.
18th, right? Okay, yeah, and they're
18th right now. Milan's also at 2-2. They're lower on goal differential, but it's all they need is one or two more losses, and it could end up being trouble. I mean, they are helped by the fact that what I call the smog zone, which is all the way down in that bottom bit in the deep haze. Yeah, there's some real dogs in that.
There is going to be some turn-ups here. There is going to be some shocks. Speaking of...
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If you're sitting down in that lower bit, if you're Bologna, if you're Bratislava, if you're Young Boys, the only thing you have right now is your pride to come in and beat down one of these bigger clubs. I mean, that's what you're doing. That's every single Champions League game, and you got 4 more. Yeah. You're like, bitch, I'm here to play. I'm going to take you down.
That's it.
Now, I don't think they're going to be able to. They're going to try.
They've got to go for it. Well, speaking of taking down, I mean, Barcelona, they have been taking down everyone. I think they've 4 games, that last 3 games they've played, they've scored 4 goals. Against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, they won 4. They played against Real, scored 4. And then last weekend as well, they scored 4 again. Barcelona, all of a sudden...
Well, they got 5.
Yeah, they got 5, right?
They got a +4 goal differential because they did let one in for Red Star. But hey...
Well, that's okay. But they've got this front trio now of Lamine Yamal, he's incredible, 17 years old, absolutely incredible. Lewandowski seems to have found his...
I think Lewandowski's actually transfusing the blood of 17-year-olds into himself.
He's Lamine Yamal's blood boy. Is that what it is? He's his blood boy.
No, I'm not going to. I don't want to cast any aspersions because conspiracy theories are running rampant. But dude, Lewandowski, for his age, he is sitting 100 goals. next game, he should get his 100th Champions League goal.
That's
I expect it's going to happen. I
Yeah.
can't
He'll
see
score.
I can't see any scenario where it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Who are they playing next week? Hold on a second. Let me bring this up here.
I'm unsure of that right now. But Barcelona, while we're there and you're pulling that up, Rafinha as well, this Leeds player. I mean, he's suddenly found form. So is this...
Or as Michael Parsons likes to go, Rafinha!
It's special. Hey, it's looking really, really special in Barcelona. I'm not saying that they're sort of the old Pep Messi days, but it's really good to see them come back and sort of be dominating and it was yeah.
Oh my goodness. So guess who Barcelona plays next week?
Tell me. Oh
yes.
Wow.
The fairy tale of Brest finally come to ground against Barcelona? That is the match. That's the match of Tuesday, the 26th of November. Let me tell you.
That's it. And so
if Brest continues in their giant killing, little Gaulish village, Asterix, obelisk, nod, wink, wink, my favorite, one of my favorites of all time, Barcelona could be in for a shock. They're at Barcelona, though. That's the advantage. If they were at Brest, I would be very, very nervous. But they're not. They're at Barcelona, and I think Brest is finally going to. They're going to hit that. They're going to hit that buzzsaw.
Yeah.
And they might shred out.
It will be. It is a fairy tale. Brest, never heard of them before. Never heard of them, and here they are, halfway through the first round of the Champions League, unbeaten, sitting in fourth place. It is truly, truly special what they have done.
That is, and it is for that reason alone, teams like Brest, that this new format has been is why it is so good.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. You still see the whipping boys at the bottom, the Bratislavas and all those, right? Yeah. You get that. You're not shocked by any of that. But when you've got a top 8 that are guaranteed advancement that contain Monaco, not decent club, certainly not one of the great powerhouses. Sporting, all right, Sporting you can see it, but still compared to Benfica generally gets more of the plaudits and the laurels. Brest,
yeah,
and even Aston Villa. Villa's is still in that group, despite this week's.
Tyrone Mings, did you see that? So, if just for context, Mings, they lost 1-0. He came back from injury, I believe it was, and Martinez passed the goal kick to him, and for some reason he let down, picked the ball up, and threw it back to him and gave away a penalty. I mean, Minger.
I officiate kids. And I do games with 10-year-olds and 9-year-olds, and they know better than that.
They know better than that. What were you thinking?
Which is interesting because apparently this happened also last year in the Premier League.
With, do you know who?
And they did not know it was covered, and I don't have my source materials here, but this happened last year in the Premier League. Exact same scenario. There was some unclarity as to when the game was getting started. A player went in, passed the ball. They did not call a penalty kick in that scenario.
I think you're right as well. The referee took pity on them as well and said, don't worry, take it again. Right?
The referee said, and because it was a 0-0 draw. Yes. It was a big game. And he said, I'm not calling a penalty kick on that. By the way, if you go back and watch the look on the referee's face when he had to call the penalty, that guy was like
why? What did you do?
Why do I have to do this? Please, can somebody in the VAR booth save me? I don't have to call this.
Imagine if he did actually say, let's just go to the VAR and just so we
let's just go to the VAR and be like,
I didn't do it, VAR did it as well, right? That's the outcome.
Yeah, there are some things that you just never, as a referee, you just never want to call. And that's like one of those scenarios where you're like, really? You really
do this? Yep. Well,
damn it.
That was, but
right to the spot.
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, I mean, they would have. It was 1-0. They lost 1-0. So even if they would have got a scoreless draw, that would have been fine. But I mean, to be honest, I think Villa are in good shape. Villa have been, even in the Premier League as well. They're going strong. So aside from that little hiccup, I think they should be good.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a bummer that it happened, right? And I can't even imagine how bad Mings must have felt, and the dressing room must have been either, I don't know. It was either filled with a lot of people clapping him on the back and saying, "Don't worry about it, mate. We're going to be just fine," or it was just a lot of stony silence and staring.
I'm sure there's going to be a bit of like, what the fuck were you thinking? Seriously, what the fuck were you thinking?
Somebody, and you want to know who said it?
Yeah,
Emi Martinez.
Yeah,
because
of course
that guy does not hold back.
That guy is a personality player, and absolutely.
Yeah, you know that. I mean, yeah, you know that when he got out of the public eye, he was giving him an earful.
No shit, absolutely. So just looking at the top of the table as well. So Sporting Lisbon, with obviously, sadly, their now departing manager Ruben Amorim, who is going off to Manchester United, thumped Manchester City 4-1. That was another shocking result. And again,
that was a surprise scoreline.
I didn't believe that score when I saw it. I was really surprised by that one. And so there's that backstory now that Amorim goes to be the manager of Manchester United, red versus blue, and he's going to come up against Pep again. It's like, does he have the secret formula of how to beat them, or were Man City just off form? It does feel that Man City are wobbling a little bit. They have not been dominating, but that's also the sign of a good team, championship winning team, is they play badly and still win. But to get thumped 4-1, it was, and also it pushed them into the hazy view, as you've called it, or the bottom half.
That's correct. They've fallen out of the free air of the.
Yeah, they've fallen out, but I think they'll be fine. I'm not crying for Manchester City just yet. But Sporting Lisbon, if you've got to think, if you're a Sporting Lisbon fan, you've got them into the Champions League. You've got this manager who's doing really well. They're second in the Champions League place as well, looking really, really good. And then all of a sudden, Man United come and just pluck him a third of the way through the season. It must be
fun. Chelsea.
Yeah,
they did a Chelsea.
They did a Chelsea
on them.
This is what they do. Hey, well, this happens.
Yeah, I think sporting fans have to feel a little butthurt on that one. I mean, that's.
But you've also got to recognize, if you're a Sporting or a Portuguese football fan, right, in any way, you know that as soon as a talent pops his head above, it's like the daisy or the poppy, right? Their head's going to get
tall poppy syndrome. Yeah, guaranteed. Someone's going to come along and pluck it for their bouquet.
They get plucked into the thing, so that's part of it.
Well, isn't that the saga of all the small leagues, right? Portuguese league, the Dutch league, they're all the same way, right? Anytime any real skill comes in there, they're gone.
I mean, I remember I used to live in Buenos Aires, and I went to the El Super Clasico, Boca against River. And you just look around, the quality is so low, and you realize that any young kid that shows a little bit of promising talent as well, European clubs just pluck them, and that's the way it is. So you just have to accept that they're feeder clubs and businesses and try and get as much money for them as possible, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at that Man City Sporting game, the scoreline comes out at you. You looked at Victor, right? Gyökeres, still can't pronounce his name. I mean, I'm generally pretty good with names. That one's tough. They still had 72% possession, right? Yeah. So they 1-0 up. They had 72% possession. There was a collapse that happened, and Holland missing that PK, I think, hurt. That was sort of that emotional straw that broke their back, right? And when you look at that and you study it very closely, he actually got a double touch on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, because he went in to shoot with that left foot, the right foot. There's either it does something with the ground, but you can see the ball pops up just a tiny bit before he hits it, and that gives it that elevation that strikes the ball. Yeah. That strikes the bar.
Okay, well that's okay. Well, that's a turn up. Maybe just a bad day at the office. I'm just looking through the rest of this league now, which, if we look at the middle section, Juventus seems to have fallen from grace a little bit. Arsenal, we'll talk about Arsenal in a second. I mean, Arsenal have just terrible. Leverkusen with Xavi Alonso, and they're my secret dark horse. I think they can go all the way, and they're the ones to watch out for. And I'm actually throwing some money down on it.
Nobody knew more than Alonso what was going to face them when they went to Liverpool.
Yeah,
and even then, it really came in at the end. Luis Diaz just woke up and delivered, and didn't even look like he broke a sweat doing it, just getting those 3 goals. I mean, it was just, they were just like handed to him. He's like, well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah. It's just like, win. But
I'm sure they all have clauses in their contracts as well of like goal bonuses, right? So they probably get an extra, let's just say a hypothetical 10,000 every goal they score. It's like, I'll take the money. Thank you very much, right?
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
The one team that I find which is most intriguing, Atalanta right now, has been, they've yet to concede a goal.
This is true, isn't it?
No goals conceded.
That is true. And they have not lost a game as well. They've had a couple of draws as well. But
they've drawn two, but they are the only that's not true. Inter also has a complete
those
zero.
Italians, those Italians.
You know, Liverpool, 1 goal. Villa, 1 goal. An own goal by Mr. Mings. Sorry. We'll call it what it is. Right? Inter, 0 goals. Right? Atalanta, 0 goals.
That is impressive to go 4 games at that level and not concede. I know, but again, do you notice the 2 Italian teams obviously sort of there, and that's the Italian culture, the Italian way.
That is and that's what everybody said when they looked at the lineups for Inter, right? When Inter went in, they completely changed their lineup. They played a classic Italian. We're going to come out, we're going to get that goal, and then we are going to just park the bus, and that's it.
And
not get through.
Gandalf the Grey. You shall not.
It is a classic railroad strike in Italy scenario. You cannot go anywhere.
You are not going. The mafia are involved. The mafia have not received their back pay, right?
Just not happening.
So the other one as well that's also quite surprising as well is Bayern. All of a sudden, Bayern Munich as well, 1-2, lost 2. I mean, Harry Kane, all their talent, Musiala, Sané. It's what's going on with Bayern here. This is, again, they're still halfway through, so I still think they're probably going to bounce back, and they're probably their heritage and their history that pushes them through. But interesting to see that they also, like PSG as well, who have only won 1, lost 2. That has been the surprise turn up. I don't know if they're missing. Just think, 3 years ago, their front line was Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar. And now it's Dembele, and then also as well, there's this young kid, what is his name? Morey. I can't remember his exact name now, so they've got some young kid. But they don't seem to be the powerhouse that they have been in Europe, considering.
And I'm not surprised by this. I mean, PSG they've always tried to buy their talent in, and they lost that. They haven't quite found their way. I mean, they're not a pushover team, but yeah, they're currently in the relegation. They're in the elimination area. So, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you've got teams like Feyenoord above them, it's like, no disrespect to Feyenoord, they're a fine club, but yeah. I'm not sure about Bayern. I think the biggest problem with Bayern is that there's no consistency. There's no. You mean, Kane did great last year and all that, but I think now you're getting in, the honeymoon's over. You're out of the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
You have to put some work into the relationship. You got a new coach coming in, right? Company looks a little awkward on the sidelines. It's like,
I mean, talk about a promotion. Hey, you manage Burnley, get them relegated, and then you go the Bayern job.
Let's just say that when it comes to the end of the year, right? If Bayern does not have a big turnaround,
they're top of the Bundesliga at the moment as well. So they're
yeah. Well, and listen, here's the thing: company was brought in for one purpose, and the Champions League would have been nice, but I don't think anybody was seriously contemplating Bayern winning the Champions League this year. They want to be in contention. But company's job is to win the Bundesliga.
The Bundesliga, get it back, because
you cannot have what happened last year.
Yeah, well, that's unacceptable for them.
That is the bar by which he is measured.
Yeah,
if they win that, he's safe.
Yeah. That's true. So yeah, it'll be interesting. So we're halfway through the Champions League as well. As I say, I think by the sounds of it, with all of the talking points and then the general enthusiasm, we're kind of fans of the new format. It seems to be the case, and obviously love an underdog story as well. Brest. Wow.
Hey, underdog stories make everything better, right? They are the spicy mustard, on the grilled sausage.
They do indeed. Love the underdog here at Hooligan. Love the underdog. So let's turn our attention to the Premier League. I mean, I think so. First of all, Manchester United, as we discussed, Ruben Amorim is going to be coming in after the international break, so we'll see what happens there and how that sort of picks up. But I mean, that's obviously is this Dutch
decision ever
for Manchester United or Sporting Lisbon?
For him,
yeah,
for Amorim.
Why is that?
What the heck? You have very good chance of failure.
Yep.
You're leaving a club where you're almost, you've almost achieved sainthood, right? And you think Ineos has any tolerance for this? Plus, he was not made manager.
Yeah.
He was made head coach.
He was made, well,
distinction. First time ever, I believe, in Manchester's history where they have not given
the manager role,
inbound person a manager position, but they've made it very clear you will not be involved in personnel decisions or certain other things. You're just there to squeeze out results.
Milk as much football out of the
stone that we have given you.
Yeah.
Have fun, start squeezing.
Start milking, right? Get milking, right? And so they're bringing in sporting directors and they're bringing technical directors, and then they'll have all the sort of, the Moneyball team above them as well. What is interesting, if you compare, these breakout managers, so you've got Ruben Amorim, obviously. I think the last one last season was Xabi Alonso at Bayern Leverkusen as well.
Yes, absolutely.
What I really respect about Xabi Alonso, he could have gone anywhere he wanted. He had the Liverpool job.
They were there. They had the money in their hands.
He's supposedly waiting for the Real job, but we'll see what happens. What I really respect about Xabi Alonso, he said, I'm going to stick with this team and see this through rather than jumping ship. Now, you can argue that Amorim has had a lot of money dangled in front of him. And the beautiful thing about that job is, that when you get fired, you're going to get a golden parachute. I just read this. Ten Hag got something like $23 million as a payout for failing after that. So, I think, I don't think there's anyone listening here or either of us. I mean, if I was going to get kicked to the can and get $23 million, I'd sort of put myself in that position to have that happen. So I don't blame him for doing that. But yeah, well, I agree. It does feel like he's taking on a sort of like the captain of a sinking ship that's taking on water, and he's got to turn it around quickly, right?
He's got the talent. Man U they've got a good
base there as well, you said.
They do have a good base. And I think that, but the club has allowed a culture of rot into their foundation. That is going to take a lot of carving to remove. In terms of a house, you got termites in the foundation and you got dry rot in the eaves. So you're going to have to do a lot in order to make it, better. It's not. And I think the problem is that Ineos is going, this can be solved quickly. And I don't think it can. And I'm concerned they're not going to have the patience with Amorim to give him the chance to get people out.
They're going to have to. Look, Ten Hag was there for 2.5 seasons?
He was.
Yeah, so you can, now I know this is Ineos, this is a new direction, new ownership. Like, you can't deny that Ten Hag had time. He had 2.5 seasons.
Oh, absolutely. No, he had time.
So I think, this idea of again, it depends how badly they do. I think, again, Man United are sitting like 14th, 15th or something in the Premier League
13.
Right now.
Yeah, they're in third.
So I think, any top half would be a result. I think priority number one is don't get relegated, which would be interesting.
Wow. And to imagine that you're using that sentence in the context of Manchester United.
Yes, yeah. Well, you would have never thought many years ago with Nottingham Forest, who were Champions League winners or European Cup winners 2 years in a row, would have then come back, and now it's just sort of pivoting away nicely there. Do you see what I did there, Qooligan?
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Nottingham Forest.
I feel led by the nose, but very comfortably.
Third place. My goodness, what
Remarkable.
the hell is going on here? I mean, this is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know what's in the Nottingham water, but I want some.
Well, it's certainly, yeah. Well, I think there's a Robin Hood joke in there, but I can't pull it out just yet. But speaking of pulling things out, did you see this? That the Arsenal sporting director, obviously we're talking about now coaches and managers here, Arsenal sporting director, their former player Edu, has left Arsenal, yes. And he's taken the job, and it's not just at Nottingham Forest. I realised that the consortium that own Nottingham Forest also own the Greek team Olympiakos. And there is a third team as well, forgive me, I cannot remember who it is exactly. And so basically he is going to go and be the sporting director of this group of 3 clubs. So
wow, so basically he's kind of doing a Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, exactly. And so this seems to be this new trend where you kind of, it's almost like, you sort of go and be a producer, you get bumped upstairs and you sort of, play sort of, you get promoted in a way and start overseeing multiple clubs and the sporting academy, the technical side of it, what style of play, what tactics you employ, how does your youth system set up, and then the recruitment as well and what type of players you buy and sign. So it's...
That's right, because it's all Marinakis, right? Evangelos Marinakis is the guy who, right?
He's got them, yeah. So, he's got doing something right, obviously. I mean, if you just look at that Nottingham Forest team, as a Chelsea fan, they have Callum Hudson-Odoi, who I love watching. I remember they signed him for 3 million. 3 million. 3 seasons before Bayern were offering 50 and Chelsea turned it down. So they've I don't know if they've figured something out, as you say there. They are really Robin Hooding it and stealing from the rich and feeding themselves. But yeah, Nottingham Forest are looking very, very good. And unlike Arsenal, who have just lost Edu, I mean, I know we're only a third of the way through the season, but it feels like there is an epic collapse that has happened there all of a sudden because,
when you look back at the way Arsenal started the season, then you look back at the last few games, I wouldn't necessarily go epic collapse, but I do think collapse is an appropriate word. They have stumbled, clearly. They've tripped, they've stumbled, they have yet to right themselves. Can they? Sure. But they've received 4 red cards already in the Premier League, 4 red cards.
Yeah.
You look at, the Arsenal manager who, wow, that was a face designed for a scowl, if ever there was one. I mean, that guy just, he has a smile that would make a child cry and run away. But
his
behavior, which is always, Arteta's behavior has always been a little provocative.
He's a Catalan, I think, as well, and so there is that sort of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there with I'm not going to make any comments on that side of things. But I don't know if you noticed, he had an incident in the Champions League game where he actually reached out and played the ball on the field of play. He handled the ball on the field of play and got a yellow card. And I was shocked because you could actually sort of see in his eyes, he went, yeah, you know what? I did do that. And
have done this.
It was caught and it's on camera. And he just went, my bad.
The red mist.
He just went, my bad.
It feels to me, Arsenal have been building this squad and this team, and really they have got behind Arteta. And look, he has done a very good job. He's put them back into the top contention.
He has.
But it feels like, there was a lot of talk about, okay, this is the season to go and take on Pep. He was obviously a disciple of Pep's as well, having been his assistant at Manchester City. He played for Arsenal, so he's got all of the sort of the support around him. He's been given money to go and get players. They signed Declan Rice, they signed Havertz, they have signed big players. But it feels to me, and there was one, I was watching Arsenal Fan TV, and one of these Arsenal fans probably put it better than that. It just made so much sense, which is our star player is in Saka, who is their forward. I wouldn't say he's a classic number 9, but he's like inverted wingers, these number 10s, that he's the one who gets all their play. He said, our star player, who's meant to bring all the goals and the talent, plays left back for his national country, for England. So when he goes to play for England, he plays at left back. Mm-hmm. That's where they put him. So he said, how can we be a championship winning team when our star player plays at left back for their country? So, and it really did sort of sum it up in a way. And if you look at the strikers, they've got Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus as well. These guys, they just don't look like superstars.
No, Martinelli's had a drop in form. He was much sharper last year.
But he's a pace player. And I have a real sort of prejudice against players who are fast, because I sometimes wonder, are they sprinters or are they football players first, or which one comes first, right?
Sure. Havertz has had for Havertz, he's had a great season.
He's not a striker, though. He's not a striker.
Well, no, he's not.
They play him as a striker.
He's a poacher.
Yep.
He's a poacher. He'll sit around and wait. Not like, and not a poacher in the quality of Lewandowski, who is one of the great poachers of all time. That guy has an instinct of where to be, and boom. But no, Havertz gets it done. But yeah, I mean, listen, they now have in the Premier League loss, draw, loss, Champions League, loss.
Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not good enough.
Yeah. It's
Not good enough.
Yeah.
4 losses and a draw in their last 4 fixtures is enough to crack the psyche of almost any team.
Yeah.
And I think the team is delicately balanced as Arsenal was, because they were always teetering on the edge of collapse. But I called this early in the season. I said, hey guys, you got lucky. You finished out games where you were short a player. You got some, and that's what good teams do that. But you can't sustain that. And as soon as the good times stop flowing, fingers start pointing, people start doing this, and they've got a really, really, really critical game coming up. This weekend's fixture against they're playing Chelsea. Wow.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's thick and fast. They're coming thick and fast. So we'll and now look, Chelsea and Arsenal are in the same position, both in 18 points as well. And Chelsea are on the up, and it seems like Arsenal are coming on the downturn. So I think the problem is the Premier League is such a marathon, but it's a sprint marathon, whereas you cannot drop points. And already when you're 5 points behind, it's captured. Well, not 5 points. They're 5 points behind Man City, who are in second, I lie. So they're actually 7 points behind the pace. That's a big gap already. And so I'm not saying it can't be made up, and they may chip away at that. But if you fall behind that early, it's hard to come back. You really have to go on a run. So do you know what this means? They're going to go shopping in January. When the January transfer window comes around, they're going to go and try and spend their way out of it.
I don't know if they'll do it, but could they go in to make a play for Chris Wood? Who is on magic form and a traditional number 9, who just sits there and waits for those types of balls that Saka can put in, right? They could. I don't think he'll leave. I don't think Wood will leave. Yeah.
Well, again, the money talks. There's been the rumors as well about that Sporting Lisbon striker who we can't pronounce his name, and we'll have to
Victor?
Yep, of course. Well, again,
Victor
Poppy syndrome. He's going to get plucked.
Gyökeres. I'm going with Gyökeres, and apologies if I got that wrong, but it sounds good.
We know who they mean.
That would be
a good get.
Yeah, that would be a good move.
Yeah.
That would be a good move. I could see that. I could absolutely see that happening.
Yep. So looking through that, so Arsenal's sort of wobble is going to be interesting. So we'll see how they go against Chelsea this weekend, which will be interesting. Liverpool, and I know we're sort of November 8th day of recording this, and we've still got essentially 2 months until the transfer window, but suddenly the pieces start getting moved around the board. Liverpool are really impressive. Arne Slot has over-delivered so far.
Yeah.
I think we can both agree on that.
Absolutely.
Those were taking over from Klopp. Those are big shoes to fill, and normally the first one through the door like that doesn't do well. But he's taken them to the next level with their new style. However, they have. I know we've talked about this before. This trio's contract issue of Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Trent as he's affectionately known.
Yeah.
Contracts are running out at the end of the season. So now, if you're those 3 big players, you're in prime position to negotiate and say, well, look, we're dominating, we're doing well, give me a new contract. I think the problem that is Mo Salah is in his 30s, although he has been incredible. I think his statistics over the last 2 seasons were better than some of Ronaldo's in some cases as well. So he's been really...
And they've been that consistent for 8 seasons. And that's the shocker.
Yes, yeah.
When you look back over a span, Mo Salah has probably one of the most impressive 8-year spans outside of Messi.
Yeah,
Messi has had an equally impressive stint. Ronaldo's had periods, but he's never been able to put the full 8 years together.
Yeah, I agree. Mo Salah, fantastic player. So the thing is, at 30 years old, he's going to want $300,000 plus a week on a 5-year deal. And I don't think you'd do that you can't give that to a 31, 32-year-old. It just doesn't feel right. Plus, also, there's the Saudi League making eyes at it, and I'm sure the MLS as well are sort of offering him all sorts of overtures as well. So I don't think he stays unless he is one of those really good players that says, "Look, guys, give me a 2-3 year contract, and then maybe that works, maybe."
Be curious to see what happens, because one thing about Mo Salah is that he keeps everything real close in. He's not a very public person, right?
Yes.
So we will probably never really know all of the stuff that goes in on the back ends. I just hope that, it's not bitter, and that there's no bitter departure there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bitter,
both sides deserve to get the best out of each other, because they have made a great run of it.
The only bitter departure I see is Trent.
I think Trent. I hate to say it, but I think Trent leaves. Yes.
I think he leaves, and there's rumors that Real Madrid are obviously building on their Galacticos and they're looking for a right back. Which, again, if you're Trent, you've won it all at Liverpool. Why not?
No, I know.
Why?
No, I think Trent's got to go for a marquee. He has to, his psychology has to think, I've got to go to a marquee team, and there are only so many of those outside of Liverpool itself.
You don't go anywhere else in the Premier League as well.
I don't think Liverpool sells him to anybody else in the Premier League.
Well, Liverpool, if they have to sell him, they have to sell him in January to get some cash for him, because otherwise he goes on free transfer when his contract expires. So that's
a tough one.
That's a tough one. And so if you're Trent, do you leave? It doesn't make sense for Arnold to Trent to leave in January, because you're going to miss out potentially on another Premier League as well that Liverpool will win, and while they're dominating.
Yeah.
Also, who knows in the Champions League how far they could go? They could go all the way in the Champions League.
Yeah,
because you'll be cup tied as well. So if you go to Real Madrid or Barca, you can't play for them, because you can't play for two teams in the same season in the Champions League.
That's absolutely
And then obviously
correct.
You get a bigger payday, because you're right. Your agent will say, "Well, you're not paying a transfer fee, so give me a big signing fee." So if you're Trent, you sit tight till the end of the season, or you maybe wait till 3/4 of the season, see how it's going, and then say, "All right, make me a juicy offer, and I'll consider staying."
Gary, that's deep. That's deep analysis. I'm looking for flaws in that argument. I'm not finding any.
Yeah. Now, if I'm Trent, I sit there and I wait till 3/4 of the season and just see how we're sitting, and then say, "All right, I'm gonna give myself to the city, to the club, as I've been there for forever, and I'll be the local hero." But again, like, how many of these Liverpool players have gone to Real Madrid? I'm thinking Steve McManaman. Do you remember him back in the day? He was a fantastic winger.
Yeah, no.
Michael Owen, he won a Ballon d'Or at Liverpool,
sure.
And then went to Real Madrid to go and play behind Raúl, Morientes, and Ronaldo. He was the fourth striker, and he went and did it, and that wasn't a good move for him. But you can argue, you can go and play with Jude and go and play with Bellingham, his buddy there. They can have a good time out there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they managed and how Fenway Sports Group handle that one.
Yeah, and then of course, the last one's Van Dijk, right? But well, it's hard to say.
We're saving the best for last with your Dutch kid. What do you think? What do you think your fellow countrymen?
I genuinely and honestly do not know. I think he goes, but I don't know where he'll go. He's 34 now, something like 33.
Yeah, he's getting on a bit. Yeah, he's getting on.
And so, granted, he's a defender, and speed has never been his trademark. His style of defense is predicated on excellent positioning and just dogged physicality of being able to just go in and time the right tackles. So he's not quite as sharp and as fast as he used to be, but he's still extraordinarily valuable in that position, and would be an incredible asset. The question is where?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think he goes back to the Dutch leagues. I think he's too good for that.
Barcelona. I have a feeling Barcelona.
One of the Italian clubs.
Okay, interesting. Italian.
Could they love their defense? They value their defense. I think he could fit in really well with an Italian defensive system. So I could see him going to an Italian club. But yeah, hard to say. Definitely not going German, though. I don't think so.
I don't think he goes to Germany.
No, he doesn't go to Germany.
I think Spain as well could be an option. I think I could see him at Barca.
Could be. But I mean, where you've got Barca, you've got Real. Those are the two big clubs. Real doesn't need them. And
Barca. We'll see how that one unfolds. But again, I think they've still got the season to get through, and Liverpool are the team to beat. They are setting the pace both in the Champions League and the Premier League.
They're setting the pace globally right now. Yeah. They're the best team. They are the best team with the best record all across the board, hands down.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking fantastic.
And there is no argument.
I agree.
To the contrary.
So bouncing around the world, as a lot of these Liverpool stars look like they might be doing as well. We've also getting into the business end of the season for the MLS and the
Yes,
playoffs.
we are. Very much so.
We've got tonight.
And some great games, by the way. Just some crazy, crazy ass stuff.
It's exciting. Who's impressed you so far? Who do you think which games have you been enjoying watching?
I mean, well, most of them have gone to kicks, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing that is the thing that has always been so bizarre, is just how many of these have gone into into those final PKs. There has to be a winner in the MLS format, right? So if you're tied at regulation, you go straight to the mark. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's been, honestly, it's been a goalkeeper show. It's been a goalkeeper showcase, right? Mm-hmm. Some goalkeepers have made just crazy saves. Takaoka for Seattle Sounders. I think is he Seattle Sounders? Hold on. Yeah, they did some incredible stuff. Kept his team. No, he's not Sounders. I think I made a mistake there.
You've got in Seattle.
He's Vancouver.
Yeah.
Right. He's Vancouver. So
they're playing against.
Now that's the one that I'm actually shocked by. The LAFC Vancouver match. You've got the 1 seed and the 8 seed. Vancouver completely shut them down. I mean, shut them down in that second game. This third game that's coming up tonight is going to be a cracker.
Going to be a good one. Right? It's going to be a good one. Cracker. And so the winners of Vancouver against LA obviously play Seattle. We've got Minnesota against LA in the other side of the bracket in the semifinals. They're going to play off. On the other side, Red Bull New York, Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, and I got to say, I think I would be very, very careful playing Minnesota. They're stubborn. They are stubborn as heck, and can get you.
Yep, they can. And then on the other side of the bracket, we've got Red Bull New York, and then playing the winners of New York City or Cincinnati. And again, New York City, I think, they won their last game 3-1. I think they're going to probably push through on that one. My money would be again. So you're going to have a New York semifinal, Red Bull against New York City, which would be interesting. And then
so much of that is going to be on who's at home. And I think that's the one thing that NYC does not have going for it. They're playing in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I do think Cincinnati, I think the orange and blue can pull that out.
Okay.
Because they're at home. And it's not because of orange and I'm wearing orange. Don't go.
And then, of course, we've got on the other side, we've got Miami. Obviously, they've taken it to the third game against Atlanta. And that was we were both talking pre-recording how that game was exciting, and I think it's going to be an interesting one as well to see if the boys in pink and Beckham and Messi and the gang can sort of prevail and go through. I think they probably
can I just say this? This is probably the first time that this Miami team is facing real pressure.
Yep.
Every other time they've had something or they've stumbled a bit, they can just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, okay, but this is it.
Mm-hmm.
They're at home. They're playing an upstart, the 9th seed, and they cannot fail. If they get knocked out, Gianni Infantino is going to get on a plane and he's going to fly to Miami and he's going to take back that Club World Cup offer that he gave them.
Yes. Yeah. So I think Miami go through there, but we'll see. That there's always, again, as we said, we love the underdog. But I'm as you can see, I'm wearing pink, and I'm a big Miami fan just because of course, Messi and Beckham, and it's got everything going for it. So I'm hoping.
I want Atlanta to win. I wanted Atlanta to win so bad. I mean, I got nothing personal against Messi. I think not really, but no. What an upset. What an absolute shocker that would be, right? That's the last game, and that's the last game tomorrow. That's the final.
That's it. That's the final, right? Final of the three, right?
That's the final third cup, third round.
And then we go.
Sure. Final game within the first round.
Exactly, the best of three. Okay. And then so we'll find out what happens there over this weekend, which will be exciting. And then afterwards, we've got this dreaded international break, which I think we've discussed many times before, is these international breaks. There's too many of them. There's too many games. We won't get into the too many games conversation because I know we've had that a number of times, but It's like it really does stop the momentum of the season sometimes, doesn't it? With the stop start. I mean, like take Arsenal for example, who sometimes maybe they want the international break to be able to stop, go away, and just be able to sort of recalibrate and then come back. Hopefully, they don't pick up any injuries or any issues like that. But it really just it's stops the momentum of the excitement, I have to say. And then
It does.
I think
It does.
the one thing that stood out for me, the piece of news on the international side, is Mbappe. It's being painted that he was dropped by Didier Deschamps for France. I don't buy that. I don't think that's the case. I remember reading something a few months ago saying that he's had a conversation and he said he's going to play. He wants to manage his game time and doesn't want to play too much. So I think there's a couple of narrative. It's either he wants to get his form back up before he comes back for France, which is a very noble thing for a Frenchman to do, which I don't buy so much. I suspect he's probably had a word and said, look, I could, with the Club World Cup coming up, I could potentially be playing 90 games this season and I need to manage it. So I think they're just like, look, you give someone else a chance and I'll be here for you when you need
me. And I think France is already in a pretty good spot, right? If I'm not mistaken, they're at the top of their pool. So these are not must-win games for some of these countries, right?
Yeah.
So no, you've got to. I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah.
Right. I think sure, Mbappe not being on a team is going to make headlines regardless. But I suspect you're right. I think there's probably some negotiation that's going on here. Now, if it happens a second time, then that's a different story. But I think him missing one international break window, I mean, Pulisic did the same thing with the United States, right? He came for one game and then he left.
And he came back to get back for AC Milan. So yes,
right. Again, so then he was like, "Hey, I got to go back to AC Milan," and that was fine, and there was no big deal. Also, for the Americans, I mean, they've automatically qualified, so it's all these games are moot, right?
And this is true, yeah. And so,
by the way, Poch,
yes.
Note to self: you recalled Zach Steffen onto the team. Did you see that howler that he did?
I did not. I did not see.
Oh my God! He went to go and do a clearance and hit a player, and it went into the goal. It was just not good. Not good.
A sign of things to come.
I mean, Colorado Rapids were doomed. They were doomed in that MLS playoff, but all the same, it was a special one. He was slow on the clearance, and the LAFC player just jumped and turned his back, hit him right square in the shoulder, and went right into the goal.
Okay. Well, that's going to be an interesting. Well, it'll be interesting. So we've got this week coming up. It will be interesting. Lots of actions and activity.
Yes.
I do feel that though this is going to be more of a trend though, where we're going to have start players saying, "No, I'm not going to play for this game," and it's going to be acceptable because historically, if you said you don't want to play for your country, you are a pariah, and that's it. Then you either don't play it ever again. But I think that the narrative seems to be changing. So we'll see how that one shakes out. So an exciting weekend on the MLS and also on the Premier League, and then some other games, and then we go into an international break, which will be.
It is autumn. It is football season across the globe. It is exciting and fun. And there's a delicious smell in the air.
Indeed there is. Cool. Well, in that one, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. So we'll come back next week and see how we get on and how the actions and what drama is to discuss then next week.
You better believe it. Trust me, there will be some crazy storyline.
There's always something.
And we'll be here to bring it to you.
All right. Take care.
Soccer. Signing off.